Hello, I hope you are doing good. Today I want us to talk about PGCE, and I want basically talk about PGCE, that is primary option, and there are key aspects that you need to consider as you preparing yourself to do your PGCE. There are certain aspects that you need to consider. Number one, make sure you have understood well the assignment brief. Remember that the PGCE is a reflection of what you are doing in class. So make sure as you write your essay, it is reflective. And also ensure that you have linked the theory that you have been learning with practice. Also consider that you have to ensure that your references are correctly cited. Let's proceed. There are different types of PGC that you need to consider, and they are classified based on the focus area. We have PGC for primary option, of which you'll be handling students aged between 3 to 11. Here, in primary level, you'll be handling almost all the subjects. But the focus subject knowledge for this PGCE is math, English, and science. The second type of PGCE that you may encounter is PGCE secondary option, of which here you are only going to focus on one specific subject that you are handling. Either you could be handling maths, English, science, or history. Another PGCE that you can easily do, that is PGCE with the QTS, is most common in England. People in England are the ones who actually pursue PGCE with QTS. There is another type of PGCE that you can handle, that is PGCE without QTS, especially students from international. Sometimes it is called IPGC or PGCI. The last option that you can pursue is school-centered PGC, which is sometimes is called CTT, whereby you are working and you want to pursue your PGCE. Now, for this case, I'm going to talk about primary PGCE. That is what I'm going to handle in this. Hello, I'm breaking from the main video to just let you know that I do offer a guidance and support for someone who is looking for assistance. If you are looking for assistance with your PGCE, please feel free to ask. I'm right here. I'll help you. Look at my bio. You'll get my details to contact me. Thank you. Let's proceed with the video. As you prepare to do your PGCE, bear in mind that you need to achieve level 7, whereby it is a high level of engagement in self-study and your interaction with your students. You need to do a lot of reading so that you can correctly cite your information. Now, in this module, this student was handling PGCE and was expected to compile a 6,000 word document and submit for assessment. The portfolio, remember, a PGCE is a critical reflection. You are reflecting on your practices. So this candidate in this year, that is 2024 to 2025 academic year, you are supposed to write a 6,000 essay, and you are critically evaluating your teaching methodology. Now, the essay was subdivided into 3 parts. The first part, you are supposed to write a 2000 essay describing what is an inclusive education. Part B was of the essay. You're supposed to talk about the adapted classroom. The word count was 2000. Then part C, you're supposed to critically analyze an incident that occurred as you teach. That was the most crucial part of this assignment. I have an example here. I need us to look into it as we discuss the PGCE, and let's see if the student was able to achieve all the key aspects. The title of the research was Adapting Classroom for Diverse Needs Through Creating Inclusive Learning Environment. The part A of the assignment was to discuss about an inclusive education, in which you're supposed to write about 2000 words. Now, you are supposed to talk about the historical and political background of inclusion. What is some of the significant legislation that took place? The importance of global development and implication on inclusive education. Issues and barriers to inclusion as you teach. How might identified reading affect the future practices? We also supposed to talk about code of practice, purpose of EEF, then the value of nascent graduate approach, then the partnership working. Let's see if this student was able to achieve these aspects. The first part of this assignment was to write part A. First part A was supposed you write the introduction. What is inclusive education? Look at the way he has provided the references. The references are latest. Look at it is 2024. 2024. This is how I expect you to do your assignment. Make sure at least you are using references that are not more than 5 years, at least if it is possible. Now, the introduction is well explained. Let's look at the second part. The student provided a well explanation of what he's going to do. Then he is going to systematically do the research. Now, let's look at how he began the discussion by looking at some of the reports, like for example, Warnock report of 1978 and Education Act of 1981. These are key aspects in building the discussion. As he goes down here, look at how he explains his points. Well explained. And he even went ahead and talked about SEND, because this student was focusing on special needs student who have certain needs to be met as they learn. And this student, this candidate was based his discussion in UK. Now let's see one aspect that this student achieved. He talked about the movement of inclusive education at global level, of which is one of the requirements we were expected to meet. Then he went ahead and even discussed about political ideology and causes of how politics influence education. And he went ahead, even talked about the significance of legislation, of which is one of the requirements he was supposed to discuss in part A. He even went ahead, talked about the code of practice. He specifically went and discussed SEND code of practice. He discussed that it was 2015. Now, apart from that, He also went ahead and talked about barriers of inclusion. They are all well explained here. Look at these citations. The citations were good. He backed all the literature with citation. The discussions are backed up with the literature. Because remember, this part is literature review part A. So you need to back up all the information that you are saying. Alright, let's continue. Look at the references. In each paragraph, at least it has at least three or four references. So please use that to your advantage. Now, he also went ahead and discussed about EFF, EEF, that was a requirement in part A. He went ahead and discussed about nascent graduate approach, of which it was a requirement also. And then apart from that, he concluded with a conclusion summarizing all the elements in part A. Part B was about you are supposed to write, the candidate was supposed to write the adapted classroom. And here, what were the expectation? You are supposed to write, it was 2000 words, remember? You're supposed to identified area of need or inclusion or even send. This may relate to your critical incident. Now, this critical incident is discussed in part C. So remember, what you are discussing in part B, it should be related to part C. Now, you are also supposed to demonstrate an emerging evidence-based knowledge and understanding of meeting people's need in this area. You are also supposed to, what's going on in that area of need that you have identified? What is the cause? What does it mean? And then why is it important to the emerging teachers? Teachers who are going to practice, how is it important for them to know? The value of the research to managing individual needs. You are supposed to remember to indicate indicators or indicators that this can affect the learning process of the students. And remember, here you are not supposed to give the diagnosis of the problem in this part B. No diagnosis, you are just stating the facts. Now let's see if the candidate was able to meet this aspect. First part of it, we see that he began part B with introduction, with all citations we see here. Latest citation 2023, 2023, 2023 here. Now, he was able to identify the need. Among the students he was handling, there were some students with autism or autism, which is the main part of the discussion here. Now, apart from that, he also went ahead and discussed the autism and gender in UK. What is the ratio between boys and girls in terms of percentage? He was able to give clear detailed information about that. He also went ahead and talked about the challenges they pose. If you're handling a class that is full of has an autistic student, what are some of the challenges it will pose to you as a teacher and to that student? He addressed it very well. Now, he also went ahead and talked about some of the triggers that can cause the student not to behave well during the lesson, and how are you supposed to handle those challenges. Remember, this part you are not addressing, you are not diagnosing the challenge, you are just stating facts. Now, he went ahead and even give us analysis of the ratio between boys and girls. He analyzed and gave us the data of girls and boys in UK. That was good job. He did a good job in that part. Now, he also went ahead and discussed what's the relationship between autism and inclusion. Because remember, the main topic was we were discussing about inclusivity, how to include students with certain needs as you teach. So he went ahead and gave us brief information about that. It was well detailed. Their side effects, how it affects the students, and remember here, he backed up the theory he knows with he backed his information with theories. For example, Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, ZPD. He gave us how is it related to autism. Then he went ahead, talked about values of research in managing individual needs. Remember, in part A, he talked about EEF, of which it is Education Endowment Foundation, of which he used the same to back up his discussion here at this part. He went ahead again and he provided plenty of information about it. Remember here, it is a reflection. You are just reflecting it. So he went ahead and even did the reflective part. Reflective practices and continuous professional development. He gave alternatives to teachers, that how can you improve yourself. Then apart from that, this teacher went ahead. Now part C. This is part C now. Part C, it was critical incident analysis, and it was 2000 words, and you are supposed to use McTeer's framework as you analyze this section. Now, let's look at what the candidate did. The candidate was able to hide the name of the student for confidentiality. Please use letters. You can use numbers, you can use letters, child A, student B, such kind of letters for confidentiality. Don't write the name of the student here. Just discuss your research. Now, he was able to give us the brief information about the student here, and then he went ahead and discussed all this part. The teacher, the incident that took place during the lesson here, it is well explained here. That the child A, frequently had trouble with the transition between task or activity, which then this student had some issues while transitioning from one task to another. Therefore, let's see, that was the issue, and this student caused a lot of the teacher identified that he had a lot of distress during the lesson. Look at this example of the teacher. It is well described. Now, having that in mind, the teacher went ahead and gave us a reflection of how the student, the experience of the student and his personal experience. What is it that made the incident very critical? Describe it here. Remember, you have to back this with the literature you provided earlier on in part A. You need to remember that. Now, you back everything with the literature you gave in part A. That is very, very important. Now, what were the immediate thoughts and response as a teacher? This section you are supposed to use the first persona. What was your response? Then, as did your response address the student's need? You need also to look at it. Back everything with the literature you discussed earlier on up there. Now, what are your thoughts now? What has changed, developed, or developed your thinking? Provide it here. Remember, it is a reflection. Reflect back based on the literature you have read. Are you able to change what you did? Is there some areas you need to develop? Put it here. Now, apart from that, then you also need, what have you learned about your practice from this incident? Provide it here. Have you learned something? Does it mean you need to change the way you handle the incident? Please write it here. Then write back everything with literature. Back everything with the research you did up there on literature review. Support them. Then in future, how are you going? How might your practice change and develop as a result of this analysis? Out of this analysis, what have you learned? What are you going to do different? Put it there. And that marks the end of the discussion. Then the last page, you need to provide the reference list. Put it correctly as the candidate did. Put it very